At some point, the questions stopped changing. First, we were told life had meaning after it ended, that suffering would make sense later, that something was waiting on the other side to explain it all. Then we imagined escaping death entirely, living forever, stretching meaning endlessly into the future. And both times, something broke. The afterlife postponed meaning until it disappeared. Immortality dissolved it by making it endless. So now we're here. No heaven waiting to justify suffering, no eternity preserving what matters, no promise that anything adds up in the end. Just this, a world where the universe doesn't answer back, where meaning isn't handed to us, if it exists at all. And once everything eternal falls away, only one question remains. If nothing matters by default, what do you do with that freedom? Hi, I'm Cholomon, and this is Devil's Midnight Thesis. Tonight's episode isn't about meaning. It's about what happens after meaning collapses, and who you become when nothing is promised. When we talk about nihilism, the examples that usually come up feel familiar. Rick and Morty, True Detective, The Boys. Stories that tell you the universe is empty and morality is arbitrary and nothing ultimately matters. And their answer is usually the same. If nothing matters, then do whatever the fuck you want. Be cruel, be ironic, detach before anything can hurt you. Treat sincerity like a weakness. Rick Sanchez is the purest version of this response. He understands the universe perfectly. And because of that understanding, he refuses responsibility.
Listen to your sister, Morty. To live is to risk it all. Otherwise, you're just an inert chunk of randomly assembled molecules drifting wherever the universe blows you.
Nothing matters, so why care? Nothing lasts, so why commit? Nothing is special, so why treat anyone like they are? And the show is honest about the cost. Everyone around Rick suffers. Relationships rot, connections become collateral damage. Nihilism doesn't free him, it isolates him. This is where everything everywhere all at once enters. Not to deny nihilism, but to confront it honestly. At its core, the film accepts the premise completely. Infinite universes, infinite outcomes. Nothing special about this one. Nothing matters. But instead of asking what can I get away with, it asks something far more dangerous. If nothing matters, why not choose to care? Not because the universe rewards it, not because it's rational, but because no meaning is coming to save you. This is where Neon Genesis Evangelion quietly steps in. Spoiler alert. By the final stretch of the series, the battles stop feeling like battles.
This world is filled with too much pain and suffering to keep going on.
The angels aren't just enemies anymore, they're mirrors. Each one forces the pilots inward, not outward. And Shinji, our main characters, especially, begins to unravel. He isn't afraid of dying, but he's afraid of existing as himself. Every time he pulls away, it hurts differently. So when the world finally collapses into the human instrumentality project, the offer sounds merciful. All pain disappears. All misunderstanding dissolves. Every mind merges into one shared consciousness. No loneliness, no rejection, no self to feel inadequate. It isn't sold as domination, it's sold as relief. Sounds familiar, right? It sounds like heaven. And for a moment, Shinji accepts it. The world becomes abstract. Voices overlap. Boundaries disappear. No expectations, no responsibility. No need to choose. And then the realization hits. If there is no separation, there is no relationship. If there is no self, there is no connection. If pain is eliminated by erasing the individual, then so is meaning. Because a peace that requires your disappearance was never meant for you. So Shinji does something small but radical. He chooses to come back. Not because the world is kind, not because it makes sense, but because a world where people can hurt each other is still better than the world where no one exists at all. Evangelion doesn't end with hope. It ends with responsibility. And that's where Evangelion and Everything Everywhere All at Once begin talking to each other because Everything Everywhere All at Once starts from the same collapse. Evelyn sees every possible version of her life, every road not taken, every outcome that could have been better. Nothing is central, and nothing is special, and nothing matters. And Jobu Tupaki reaches the same conclusion instrumentality promises. Why feel anything when you can dissolve into everything? Why choose when nothing is permanent? The bagel becomes a symbol of that temptation, a place where all meaning collapses into nothing. And just like Evangelion, the escape looks peaceful. No expectations, no disappointment, no effort. But Evelyn doesn't defeat that void with answers. She responds with something far less impressive and far more difficult. Care, attention, presence. She chooses small things, kindness without reward, love without assurance. Not because it fixes the universe, but it fixes how she lives in it. And that's a pivot. Because nihilism isn't the end of meaning, it's the end of excuses. And that sounds good in theory, choosing to care, choosing responsibility. But what happens when the world gives you no reason to believe it will matter? What does meaning look like when nothing guarantees a future? This is where Children of Men enters. Spoiler alert. The world in Children of Men doesn't end in spectacle. It fades. No children have been born for nearly 2 decades. No explanation, no cure. And slowly, humanity stops imagining a future. Governments still function. Cities still stand. People still wake up and go to work. But everything feels temporary. Like no one is planning past tomorrow.
100 years from now, there won't be one sad fuck to look at any of this. What keeps you going?
I just don't think about it.
There are no grand ideologies here, no promised revolutions, and no belief that things will get better, just survival. And our main character, Theo, he isn't a hero, nor is he chosen. He isn't hopeful either. He's numb. He's already lost his child and his faith. And he's also accepted the future is gone.
It was every other day. Woke up, felt like shit. Went to work, felt like shit.
That's called a hangover, amigo.
At least with a hangover, I feel something.
This isn't a world before meaning. It's a world after it. Then something impossible happens. A woman is pregnant. Not a prophecy, not a solution. And not a guarantee. Just something fragile that shouldn't even exist. And the film is careful. The baby doesn't fix the world. The violence doesn't stop. Cruelty doesn't disappear. But people do, for brief moments. When soldiers hear the baby cry, they lower their weapons. Enemies pause. The noise falls away. Not because the future is saved, but because something worth protecting is suddenly present. Meaning doesn't return as hope. It returns as care. So Theo protects the child not because it promises salvation, but because it's vulnerable. Because it's here. Because someone has to choose it. Meaning doesn't come from certainty. It doesn't come from promises. It doesn't come from knowing things will work out. It comes from choosing responsibility when nothing assures you it will matter. So by the time you reach this point in the video, something becomes clear. Meaning doesn't collapse because the universe is cruel. It collapses when we expect it to be handed to us. We look for it in gods, in systems, in eternity, in futures that promise to explain everything later. And when those fall apart, it's tempting to stop there, to call it nihilism, and mistake honesty for hopelessness. But nihilism was never the end. It was the clearing. The meaning was something we were never meant to discover. It was something we were meant to take responsibility for. In attention, in care, in choosing anyway. Not because it lasts forever, but because it doesn't. And maybe that's the most frightening possibility of all. Well, the most frightening possibility isn't that life has no meaning, it's that meaning is entirely our responsibility. This has been another episode of Devil's Midnight Thesis. Think responsibly. Or better yet, take responsibility.